Hi everyone, my name's Sophia,
My name is Hank.
and welcome to You Know Me So Well. So currently we are binge watching Love is Blind, and there is all sorts of things going on in that show. And I feel like it's given us stuff to analyze. And with that, we have decided we're going to talk about publicizing relationships today. So we'll first talk about like sharing details about your relationship, talking about your relationship with friends, family, people that you know. How much should you share? What should you share? What should you not share? That kind of stuff. And then we'll talk about relationships on social media. So like, posting stuff online about your relationship. So yeah, this should be interesting. So I feel like for girls, when you get into a relationship, you tend to share a lot of details with your friends. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I think girls just love to like share their lives with other people. And so, when they see their girlfriends, like most likely they're going to cover details about their relationship. The thing is, I feel like is a fine line between just like sharing details about the relationship that like, okay, you're just sharing them. Like maybe people are giving you advice, but it's like their personal decision to give you advice. And then like actually like sharing details about your relationship and then like expecting something out of the people who are listening to those details. Like you're expecting them to like help you with your relationship. What is it like for guys?
Yeah, I mean, guys, at least in my experience, I don't know if this is the general consensus, but we don't really talk about like too in detail about like the specifics of our relationship. Maybe that's just me, but I feel like we don't go too in depth about things.
I feel like with girls, when they share their relationship with their friends and stuff like that, it's usually to kind of get like a consensus on it. I feel like a lot of girls just overthink things, and it's helpful to hear other people's opinions on certain things so that they can like rationalize it. Like if let's say they're freaking out about something and they're like, oh my God, this happened in my relationship, like I don't know what to do about it. And then friends are like, no, like don't worry, that's actually normal. Like that can really help a girl out. And I think that's why girls tend to share stuff about their relationships. I think it also like for example, like with the friends that I have who are in relationships, it's like definitely a big conversation topic because it's something that like bonds us together. And like sometimes, like it's like my relationship is my relationship and their relationship is their relationship. But if we bring them together, we can bring like different perspectives. And so it's like, it's sometimes good to hear like what other people have to say about their experiences within relationships so that you can see whether maybe like what your relationship is like is normal or like, or they can give you tips on how to like handle a certain thing. And I think that's really great. I think the issue comes when someone is essentially, and I guess in a way guys could do this too, but I feel like girls tend to do this a lot more. I think the issue comes when you're essentially trying to get like help with your relationship. Like something's going wrong with your relationship and you're trying to bring in like an extra person to try and help you fix it or like be a middleman between you and your partner. I've been in a circumstance where I love like matchmaking people. I've done it for a couple of people now, which I always forget, but I have, or for a couple of relationships. And the very first time I properly did it, I believe, they ended up getting into a relationship and I hung out with both of them a lot, like at the very beginning of their relationship. And I somehow ended up getting kind of stuck in the middle. And it was a really difficult situation for me because like one of them was my best friend and the other one, like I wasn't as close with, but I'd been like developing a friendship with him too because I'd been hanging out with him. And it was just like a difficult situation to be in. And I think just in general, like the rule of thumb is you should never try and get someone else involved in your relationship issues because it puts them in an awkward position. And at the end of the day, like, your relationship is you and your partner. And if you can't figure things out between the two of you and you need to bring someone else into it, that's problematic. And that probably is a sign that there's something like horribly wrong, I think, personally. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said earlier, there's absolutely a very fine line in what you share. It's tough to put someone in that situation, and it's like not really fair to them either. It's not like they really like asked for it. And I think it's like that definitely does way more harm than good to the relationship as well. Because I think another big thing is you should always be respectful of what your partner is also comfortable with you sharing with other people. And if you're going to go in detail about this big issue that you're having, they might not be comfortable with the fact that you're doing that. And they might find out about it and it might make them upset. And also it's going to affect the way that the friend or whoever you're telling it to sees the other person as well, which will just affect the relationship in general. So I think it's just always best to kind of err on the side of caution with that type of stuff.
yeah, I totally agree. And so, like, what we've been seeing with Love is Blind is sometimes certain people decide to share very questionable things with their friends or family, even in front of their partner. And I feel like generally, I get it. Like, sometimes you're in a relationship with like a really bad person and there's like really no good to share about them. But I think if you're in like a pretty decent relationship, you're happy with the person, sure, you're going to have your issues. It's going to be frustrating. You might want to talk about it to someone. I get it. But I feel like you should give that person like a good report. You know, like it shouldn't be all negative. Like if something's going on and you need some advice from some other people, like share it. But I feel like, you know, if they ask you like, oh, so like how is your relationship or like how's your partner? Like don't just go into like he's the worst thing that has ever happened to me, like he treats me so badly, you know, like et cetera, or whatever you want to say. Especially with family. I feel like with family, you know, it's like if you like your partner, like you probably want your family to like your partner too. I think it's important to avoid sharing questionable stuff about them, especially at the beginning, maybe before your family has met them or just like in the beginning stages of the relationship and your family doesn't really know them either. Like don't give them like a bad rep because then, and it's the same thing with friends, honestly. Like if you're going to give like someone a bad rep, but they're actually not even that bad of a person, like your friends are going to start to hate them too. And they're going to like have now this long list of all the bad things your boyfriend has done. And so like, you know, when you're like talking about them, they're like, just dump him, like get rid of him. Like, why are you still with him? But then you're like, no, but actually like we get along really well. And like the relationship is actually really great. Like he's actually so nice. Like, you know, blah, blah, like he did X, Y, and Z for me. And it's like, but they don't know that because you're just sharing the bad. So I think it's important generally, especially at the beginning of the relationship, to share the good, you know? I feel like also when you're like, you just started a relationship, like what you're getting is mostly good too, you know? Like honeymoon phase, everything's like exciting and happy and, you know, so it's like, I don't think there should be a lot of bad coming out. And so.
No, I mean, I just agree. Like you definitely don't want to paint a negative picture of your partner to your friends or family because like if you really do feel like you're painting a negative picture and you don't have any positive things to say, maybe reconsider the relationship, you know. But if you're painting a negative picture of your partner, either calm down and stop sharing every single little bad thing that goes wrong, or make sure that you're sharing at least just as much of the good stuff that does go on. If you only ever share the bad stuff, like kind of like Sophia said, they're gonna think your partner's just like a terrible person. Like,
yeah, so like I don't know. I'm thinking a lot about like what we've seen on Love is Blind, and it's like I don't know why you would even bring that up if you know your family is going to be upset about it. Like,
okay, I actually do have one more thing to say based off of that. In Love is Blind, there's a scene where the girl goes into detail about this big fight that they just had in front of the guy's friends. So it's the girl talking about it, it's in front of the guy's friends. I feel like it can only lead to issues if you try to embarrass your partner in front of their friends like that and like try to paint a negative picture of them in front of them like that. Like I feel like that just puts kind of everyone in an uncomfortable situation because like, well, what are we supposed to do with this information?
Right. Yeah. So like rule of thumb, share happy moments, share good things, be nice, like respect your partner. So then we'll transition it to publicizing your relationship on social media. So in this day and age, it's so easy to share your relationship to the world, to people you don't know, to people you may have a connection to, but like you don't know personally, the whole thing. I think obviously each couple is different. I've seen couples who have decided just not to share their relationship on social media, or like it's very like hidden, like the soft launch, hard launch type thing, like private, not secret, And then there are people who like share their relationship from the very beginning, and it's like you kind of just like seem to always know what's going on with the relationship. You know when it's happening, and of course when they break up, you will know it because they'll stop posting and you'll be like, where did this person go? And then one thing I've seen recently is, maybe I'm not paying too much attention to like the actual person, but I've been realizing there have been a lot of hard launches around the 1 year mark. Like all of a sudden there will be just like a whole Instagram post and it's like happy 1 year. And I'm like, I have never seen this person in my whole entire life. Like, where did they come from? So I think that's an interesting concept too, because as my dad said when I started dating Hank, he only considers a real relationship to be one that has lasted a year. So I guess like, yeah, that is probably a pretty good mark to start sharing it, because it's like you've gone through things. If you can make it through a year, like I'm not going to say you're not going to break up later, but like your relationship has developed. It's given its time to sort of like marinate and like the whole thing, But if you are publicizing your relationship on social media, you run a lot of risks, as Hank and I discovered. Hank so I had this whole plan to soft launch our relationship. It was a 6-month plan. At month 6, the relationship would come out and I'd be like, oh my God, here's the man, by the way. Like, you knew he existed, but like, here's what he looks like, I guess. Even though no one in my life knew who he was, because we don't run in the same social circles. We didn't go to the same school. Like we just happened to be in the same city, but it's like, what are the chances that anyone I know would ever see him like walking on the street or something? So it's like, it's not like oh, surprise, like you actually knew who he was this whole time. It was like, this is just some random guy, to everyone. But I was not successful with my soft launch plan, very unfortunately. Hank started publicizing our relationship like 2-3 weeks in. Yeah, so like pretty soon into it. And I fell victim to Valentine's Day, where everyone was just like throwing out their relationships. And I was like, and I panicked and I was like, oh no, I have to like post now. And so I did. So there went my soft launch plan, unfortunately. But when you publicize your relationship, you probably have a lot of eyes. You might not be expecting it, but there are people who are watching your relationship. People that you know and people who you also don't know. And they can kind of follow along and create a narrative to the relationship as well. They may not know anything about your relationship. They might just see pictures online or maybe like a TikTok here or there, but they may know absolutely nothing about your relationship, but they can create a whole narrative to it and then go with that narrative. There might be people who you didn't really expect to be like ultra interested in your relationship, maybe even borderline obsessed. This, I feel like, generally ends up being like exes, because who else would care so much about a relationship they actually know nothing about? Probably not your friends or like a random person who follows you. Well, maybe they're like really bored. On TikTok itself, it's really easy for people to sort of hide. I mean, I guess with a lot of social platforms, but I've found that with TikTok, you can get some hatred for your relationship and you have no clue where it's coming from and whether the person knows you or they don't know you, and it gets kind of scary. This may or may not have happened to me. Anyways. But yeah, you run a lot of risks with sharing your relationship on social media. The other thing is like, everyone, once people know about your relationship, they sort of know like the time frame of it too. Like they'll know, like once you post that like, oh, 6 months or like 1 year, people will know when you started dating. Then people will know when you broke up too, because when you stop posting that person, they'll be like, oh, something must have happened. And the question really to think, like before, if you're getting into a relationship and you haven't started posting anything, like really think to yourself, how much do you want random people to be involved in your relationship? Because it can really harm the relationship in ways that you probably didn't expect. You might think you're stronger than you are, and then it happens and you're like, oh, shoot, like this kind of sucks. Personally for us, when Hank started posting our relationship, he still followed his exes and they followed him. So every time he would post on his story, they'd come flocking to mine. And then at some point, they disappeared, if you know what I mean. But
let it be known, if there's any police listening to this, we did not murder them.
No. Okay, wait, no, he just blocked them.
They disappeared.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean.
That was not. Yeah, so, they could no longer just like freely view his story as you would if you followed someone. But that didn't really stop them from viewing my story and occasionally viewing Hank's, but like more mine. And it was weird because it was like all of a sudden it felt like there were just constant eyes on me and our relationship. And I feel like as a girl, that can be really difficult at times because it's like you want to put your best, like you just like want to present yourself in the best way that you can. And it's like, why this person is looking at your account and stalking you and viewing your stories, even though they don't follow you, thinking like you're not going to know. They're curious. Like it seems like they might be waiting for like a downfall. Maybe like they're upset about the fact that you're in a relationship. They're like curious. They're waiting for something to happen. They're trying to figure out what's going on, like what's the story behind it. Like they're in a way maybe a little obsessed. And so obviously like you want them to think like highly of you. And so like it sort of becomes a facade where it's like now you're thinking about like, oh, what am I posting on social media? Do I look good in these pictures? Like, does our relationship look good? Like, and then, of course, at some point, I found out that they were also watching my TikTok. So then it was like, okay, now like I have to think about what I'm putting on TikTok. And it's like, it's really, really exhausting. And it can like, it's like, in a way, it's nice. You're like, oh, they must really think I'm like super hot and that like, the whole thing. But then you're also like, okay, but do I actually look good? Do I look like, am I accomplished? Like you just start to really like get in your head about things. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who don't, but it's very easy. Like when you realize that there's certain people who are watching to just kind of like start to overthink it and to, wonder whether what you're putting out is like good and whether like what they might be thinking about it, Of course, like I was constantly wondering like when's the next time this person's going to view my story because you never know. It's like sometimes I would be like, oh, she's done. Okay, she's gotten over it. Like this is great. And then like a couple months later, she'd be back in my story views and I'd be like, okay, totally. Like, hi, welcome back. It's so nice to see you again. And it's like, I don't know this person personally, but somehow, some way it feels like we just know each other so well. because there's this constant, like, it's just constant. So yeah, that sort of highlights the risks that you may face when you publicize your relationship. Now, of course, publicizing your relationship lets it be known that you're in one, that you're taken. Maybe that's something that you want to share. Like, for example, when I got into our relationship, or before I got into our relationship, like, I had a lot of different, like, guys from dating apps on, like, Snapchat, for example. And, like, sometimes I'd post something and they'd swipe up and they'd, like, comment on it. So, like, by posting my relationship on there, it made it clear to them that, oh, she's taken now. So it's like, okay, like, probably, and it happened. Maybe, like, at the beginning there was still, like, some comments, but at this point, like, no one ever swipes up on my story. So maybe I've gotten less attractive or something.
Yeah, that's totally it. Now that you've been in a relationship for like 14 months now.
You know what happens when you get into a relationship. You start to let yourself go and all that.
Fuck up.
But anyways, so yeah, so like it can be fun to share a relationship. Also, like, with TikTok, it's like there's fun TikTok trends. They're constantly, like, couple trends. You want to participate, you want to share. Like, your friends might comment on it and be like, oh, this is so cute. Like, it's nice to share that thing, or, like, share those things, and it's fun, and, like, it seems really harmless, but sometimes it can be actually quite harmful. And if you're in a relationship where you've never faced any issues with, like, publicizing your relationship online, I'm so jealous. So jealous. Anyways, Hank?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you did a great job defining the risks. I really don't have anything more to add on to that. I know, like, until, like, our relationship started, I had a stigma, and maybe you did too, I don't know. But it was just like, oh, if people refuse to post each other, like, when they're in a relationship, like, they're trying to hide something, or it's like they're embarrassed or something like that. But now I kind of get it, There's a lot of benefits to not sharing your relationship, especially, like, behind the scenes to the world,
Yeah, we've gone clearly an extra step by creating this podcast together where we share
this may
intimate details about our lives.
Right, this might sound very counteractive to what we're saying right now.
Yeah, I can't justify it. I was going to try and justify it to you, but I actually can't.
But the thing is, we knew the risks when we started it. We know that there's potential, like, of actually,
I think the way we thought about it is, if something happens, we're going through it together. Like, with the way that the things we've experienced so far, it was generally like one of us was going through it, and the other one was just sort of, like, viewing what was going on because of it. Like, I don't think Hank checks his story views. Yeah, so it's like,
I post my story and I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah, well, I used to do that too until, life happened.
Yeah, life happened. That's a good way to phrase it.
Do you have any more benefits to, like, posting a relationship on social media?
I think, yeah, it was actually like we talked about in the last episode, where I was like, always show off, like, don't be afraid to show off your partner. I think that can be kind of a way to show off your partner, be like, show that you're proud of them, like, you don't want to hide them or anything, like, you're proud to have them.
Look, if you have a hot partner, flaunt them, Yeah. Good for you. Like,
and that's how I feel. So, that's why I was posting you on social media 2 weeks into our relationship.
You gotta let the world know you did well. But, like, high school haters and, like, whoever, like, you grew up with, they're like, oh my gosh, like, what happened? Takeaway from this episode: really think about whether you want to publicize your relationship or not, how much you want to publicize it, like, what you want to publicize, what you don't. I would say err on the side of caution when you're doing it too, because you never really know how people are going to react. You never know who's going to come back and decide they want to share stuff or get closure, or just present themselves somehow, some way into your life the moment you're in a relationship. So
Try to force themselves into it.
yeah, exactly. So the whole thing is like, if you are thinking about like sharing a relationship on social media, like think about that. Think about, don't think about who might come back, but like think about the possibility of people deciding to come into your life. And also, like, if you're like, let's say you have been posting your relationship on social media, but now you're like, I don't know whether I want to share so much anymore. Maybe I don't want to like share the person as much, like just share like smaller details, like maybe like a date night. Like you can do that too. You can always like take it back. I mean, of course, if there was damage done, it was done, but hopefully, I also feel like once the damage is done, there should be actually, I'm going to take that back. You never know what's going to happen. Anyways, the point is like, it can go in waves. Like you can post a lot and then not post a lot, blah, blah. I always find it very interesting. There's those couples that like post a ton about their relationship from the very beginning. Like I remember when I was a freshman in college, there was this couple. They met, I guess they'd probably been talking, like they lived in 2 different countries, and this was like during COVID, so like they couldn't, like this was when people who weren't in the US couldn't come into the US, so like he was like in Europe or something like that, so he couldn't like come visit her. And so they like met up in a different country at some point, and they like automatically started dating, and then they would post like everything, like every day from the moment that they like started seeing each other. Like you had all the details of the relationship. Like you had the video of them like meeting each other. You had like, here's a dinner date, and here's like, it was just like everything you could ever imagine a relationship having, like it was on social media. And they were like pretty consistent for like the first couple of months, I think, where it was like constant posting. And then I think it died down a little, but they still would post each other, and like they're not together anymore. And it's like, I still think about that relationship sometimes because I felt so involved in it, even though I didn't know either person. Like I'd never talked to them before. I had never seen them in person. Like the whole thing, and yet I felt like I knew so much about the relationship. I knew where they met, I knew when they met, like all the details. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to know about couples on social media, but if you're in one, it's up to you to decide how you want to share your relationship, whether you want to share it or not. And then also like when it comes to friends and family, like also err on the side of caution. Try not to put your relationship or put your partner down, especially not at the beginning. Try to be respectful, like know what your partner is comfortable with you sharing, and try not to share outside of that. Like you never want to come back and be like, oh yeah, so I was like talking to this and this friend about this and this, and your partner's like, why would you share that with them? So like be respectful, be nice, and maybe don't start with all bad. Yeah, I think main takeaways. And I think that's it from us. See you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. Send us emails.
Yeah, send us emails.
Our inbox is, we get the most random emails, but I want emails from like real people. So
if you listen to this, please send us an email,
And this is filmed way ahead of when this is actually going to be posted, but we have a Twitter now. So
we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's going to catch on in like April, and we're in March.
Right. April 25th.
Yeah. All right.
At You Know Me So Well or at YK you know me YKMSW podcast. That's the Twitter.
Yeah. That's also our Instagram.
Right.
And then our TikTok is it's the abbreviation, so YKMSW, and then just pod. Maybe I'll change it to podcast.
Yeah, go follow us. Send us a message on there. Email us. Whatever.
Yeah. All right. Bye.